Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1593B, and today's date is June 15th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Movement Has Started, the Clock is Ticking Down, Tick-Tock. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we know George Soros has been pushing the refugee agenda throughout Europe. He pushes propaganda, he supports certain NGOs, and we see that he's trying to control propaganda right now because he has purchased shares in the New York Times, and he purchased around $3 million worth of shares right now. He also purchased shares in other companies, and he's purchased in Time Warner, in Tribune Media Company, and many others. And it looks like he's continually purchasing his shares in these publications to try to control what these publications produce, what propaganda they push out. And this is what the deep state does. They gain control of the corporate media, and they use the corporate media to basically shape their agenda. And they've been doing this for a very long time. And this is why when you look at the videos of all the different corporate media outlets, they're all saying the same thing. It's all scripted, and they're all repeating the same exact thing. Even though they're in New York or they're in California or Texas and Chicago, it makes no difference where they are. They're still repeating the same thing because they are controlled by one entity, and they are telling them what to say. So we can see right now that he's trying to push this because, as you can see, he's losing control. The deep state is losing control right now, and they're becoming more and more desperate to get their control back because, as you can see, not many people believe the corporate media anymore. Yes, there are certain people out there that still do, that still listen, but many more people are saying, you know something, I just don't like to listen to this anymore, and I don't know if it's real, if it's fake. And I think this is part of Trump's strategy, where he continually says this is fake news, to make people question, is it real? Isn't it real? I don't know what this is anymore, because if you really listen to them, the Russian collusion thing completely fell apart. The part about North Korea, where we're going to war, where North Korea is going to bomb us any second, that fell apart. And you can see it continually falls apart. Now, right now, we see out in Syria that Trump and his administration, they've authorized new funding for the White Helmets, which was previously put on hold. And we know the White Helmets, it's not a good group. They don't help anyone. It started out maybe as helping people, but it turned into a group that works with Al-Qaeda, the paid mercenaries. They were taken over, and we can see that their whole entire structure right now is controlled by the deep state. And when this was first started, there were White Helmets, but they were not controlled by the deep state. It was really out of Syria, and then it morphed into something completely different. And right now, the State Department, they released a press release, and they're saying about 6.6 million is going to continue to the White Helmets so they can save lives, they can help out, and we know that this is not true. We know this is not what they do. There's been many, many reports in Syria when these different areas have been liberated where they said the White Helmets worked with the terrorist groups. So let's look into the White Helmet group for a minute here. The White Helmets are a 3,000-member NGO formerly known as the Syrian Civil Defense, established in late 2012, early 2013, after a group of 20 Syrians were trained and organized by former British Army officer James Lemercier. The group then received funding from the Netherlands-based nonprofit group Mayday Rescue, which is in turn funded by grants from the Dutch, British, Danish, and German governments. The U.S. has in the past provided at least $32 million to the group, around one-third of their total funding, through U.S. aid. And this is that U.S. aid scheme orchestrated by the Obama State Department and funneled to the White Helmets using Washington, D.C. contractor participating in U.S. aid's Syria regional program, Chemonics. So the U.S., Dutch, British, Danish, and German governments have been funding the White Helmets, a non-governmental organization, through proxies for around 5 years. Now, The Russian Defense Ministry spokesman warned earlier this week that U.S.-backed Free Syrian Army forces are planning a serious provocation. Now, Russia says it is aware of the existence of a video which will be used to prove an Assad chemical attack, similar to the videos which has emerged in past events. So is this a coincidence that they decided to release $6.6 million to the White Helmets to allow them to feel that, yes, the U.S. now supports them once again? Go ahead and work with this false flag and do what you normally do while we set you up. Is this a sting operation? Because it's starting to feel that way, where the government or the FBI, they use money and people think, oh, I'm getting the money. It's all part of it and everything's the way it is. And actually, the White Helmets now are going to do what they normally do, where they stage the whole thing because they need the White Helmets, because they need to make it look like, oh, they're helping them. These people are sick. We need to have it on video, put out the video. They need the whole thing to go through. So it looks like this could be a complete and gigantic setup that is happening right now. And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, if the U.S. released the $6.6 million, that must mean that Trump and the Patriots, they want to take over Syria. They want to get rid of Assad. They're doing the same thing that they've always done in the past. Think back to North Korea. Everyone was saying the same exact thing. When the news was coming out that our nuclear button is bigger than yours, we'll bomb you. North Korea is continually testing their nuclear weapons. They can fire their missiles. They can hit the U.S. We're going to war. War plans are being drawn up. We're going to lose 100,000 people. Think about what was done there. The illusion was kept alive while other things were happening in the background. That is what is happening right now. And I know a lot of people are out there saying, no, that can't be true. Well, it did come true in North Korea, and I do believe this is a complete and utter setup. We see the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Maria Zakharova is commenting on the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, where they came out with a report in Syria a year later. This was the report for March 2017 about the gas attack, saying, yes, sarin and chlorine were used, but our mandate is not to tell you who was using it. And she is saying that the report is questionable because it took 1 year for it to come out. And it tells us that chlorine and sarin were used, and that is it. And it's pretty meaningless at this point because it's not telling us who did it. And the UN stays away from this because this is a U.S. mandate. This was a deep state mandate. They didn't want to tell you who used it. They only wanted you to hear chlorine, sarin was used, and then they would use the propaganda to push you into Assad used it. That's how they do this. We see that Putin and Netanyahu, they have been speaking on the phone and they're expressing readiness to coordinate some type of peace deal in Syria. And we see already that Iran, they're mulling, withdrawing their advisors from Syria. And we see there's talks going on between Putin and Netanyahu. And there's going to be talks going on between Trump and Putin. And China is involved. And we can see all of this is coming together right now. And we'll have to see where this leads. Because right now, they are in the political process trying to iron this out. And I think this will go forward just like North Korea went forward. Now let's talk about the Inspector General's report, and let's go through some of the things that came out and explain what this report really is and what it's trying to tell us. Because a lot of people think that this report came out and we should see prosecutions. No, that's not what this report is. And remember, this report isn't the unredacted, unclassified report. So in the report, Comey claims to have not known Huma was married to Weiner. And he says, I don't know that I knew that Weiner was married to Huma Abedin at the time. Yeah, like he didn't know that. The Inspector General report details crimes against children. This is Anthony Weiner's laptop. And he goes through that Anthony Weiner sick, unrelated, wiener, texting 15-year-old, sexually explicit, and he went down the whole list about what Wiener was doing. FBI agents took bribes from the media. The Inspector General identified instances where FBI employees improperly received benefits from the reporters, including tickets to sporting events, golfing outings, drinks and meals, admittance to non-public social events. And why did they do this? Well, the Inspector General says we will separately report on those investigations as they are concluded, consistent with Inspector General Act, other applicable federal statutes, and OIG policies. We see Strzok stated ambition was to stop the Trump presidency. This was the text where it says we'll stop it, and they said it was like an insurance policy. We also see that this report is the edited and redacted version. We are providing copies of our unclassified report and the classified appendix to Congress and are publicly releasing our report without these appendices. We also are providing copies of our unclassified report to the Office of Special Counsel for its consideration. Now, for those of you thinking that this is public, written IG report raises more questions than it answers, well, you're exactly on the money. That's the entire point of all of this. And the thread by Imperator Rex kind of really breaks this down. The key word here is public. That's because this isn't the complete unredacted report. This investigation and report occurs during multiple ongoing Department of Justice investigations, criminal hearings, not to mention a highly polarized and politicized environment. The public report likely excludes evidence that's currently needed by the Department of Justice in criminal cases. It only includes what has been permitted to be made public. POTUS, as well as other selected individuals, have the other unredacted, unclassified report. Remember the word written. That's because the OIG report has a written component, today's report, and an oral component. That's when Horowitz is going to testify on the 18th. This most likely isn't the end of the report, and much will be clarified on the 18th. Another thing, unlike most Inspector General reports, this isn't a standalone, isolated report. Apart from a criminal investigation ongoing, this is the second of 3/4 OIG reports to land, emanating from the original scope of the January 12, 2017 investigation. Keep in mind something else. The report has been designed to protect those who have flipped. The same people appear in each report in relation to different events. An example, Priestap seems almost marginal to events, when we know, in fact, that he was probably central. Also, stay focused on the scope of this report. The report is not about whether Clinton broke the law with her server, which we know she did, but about the FBI exoneration of her. The two are different, although it was nice to see parts of it in the report. So what is the OIG report? What is their purpose of all of this? Well, the OIG does investigation. The Department of Justice does criminal probes and law enforcement. The OIG could say that Comey was a Martian who should be criminally referred by jaywalking, or it can make 0 criminal referrals. It doesn't really matter. The Department of Justice isn't bound by the OIG. It calls the shots on indictments and investigation. What matters most to the Department of Justice? Facts. That's what they care about. Facts. And with FBI Director Comey, where they're saying he's insubordinate and incompetent, that's pretty big. And you're probably wondering why. Well, Trump's decision to fire him is now fully vindicated. Any potential obstruction of justice charge is now null and void. Also, Comey's credibility as a witness has been shredded. A prosecutor could try and use him, but a good defense attorney would tear him apart. Remember, there's a mountain of incriminating evidence against him outside this report. The Strzok and Page comms give more credibility to the existence of a scheme to remove Trump. Strzok and Page show clear bias and intent to get Trump before he was elected. We also have to remember the 13 anonymous Obama officials were communicating via private email. Obama, Clinton, private citizen, one candidate appeared to have been emailing each other during the election. And when we look further into this report, we see that foreign actors appear to have compromised Clinton's email account. I mean, think about this for a second of what is coming out in this public report. Can you imagine what's in the unredacted classified report and all the other appendices and everything else? The FBI was leaking like a sieve to reporters. The annex tables show a disturbing network of corruption between FBI agents and reporters. This will require further investigation and is likely going to show who has been leaking all this kind of stuff. The FBI appears to have been concealing incriminating texts from Congress, and they lied about it. So when we start to look at all this, we can see that all of this is leading up to something much larger, and we need to do this step by step. And this is brought out into the open. It's public now. And basically, the movement, if we remember what Q said, is to be loud, to be heard, to ask for the classified report to be unclassified, to get the redacted report unredacted. That's the whole point of this. Now, something interesting Q posted in post 105, 106, and 107, which were missing from Patriots Fight. And we're going to look at post 107 here. And when we look at this, we also notice that 107 refers to 107 in the video from a previous report I did that was talking about going from dark to light, and that was a marker. Why did Q pick this as a marker? Well, one anon has a theory, and this is what this anon says. 612 was at the 7-second marker on the clock. In general, the focus on 107 could be further of 17. In other words, 107 equals 10 plus 7 equals 17, which is Q. And if you go back through the drops, you'll see that the only post with a true 107 marker is this one, and it's from December 4th, post 247. And when you read this, this is all about the Inspector General's report. And basically, when we look at this, we're going to focus on the answer button. Now, on all these posts, there's a button at the bottom when people figure out the answers and they do the research and they put the answer button there and you can click on it and it'll give you the answers of what all this means from all the research. And when you click the answers, you can see at the bottom, there's something very interesting. And what we're talking about here is Obama's hidden Iran deal giveaway. And this is coming out of Politico. In this Sunday morning address to the American people, Obama portrayed the 7 men he freed as civilians. The senior official described them as businessmen convicted of or awaiting trial for mere sanctions-related offenses, violations of the trade embargo. In reality, some of them were accused by Obama's own Justice Department of posing threats to national security. 3 allegedly were part of an illegal procurement network supplying Iran with U.S.-made microelectronics with applications in service to air and cruise missiles like the kind in Tehran test-fired recently, prompting a still escalating exchange of threats with the Trump administration. Another was serving an 8-year sentence for conspiring to supply Iran with satellite technology and hardware. As part of the deal, the U.S. officials even dropped their demand for $10 million that a jury said the aerospace engineer illegally received from Tehran. Now, Strzok's wife was Melissa Hodgman. And a quick refresher of who she is, well, tells us the following. The Securities and Exchange Commission today announced that Melissa Hodgman has been named Associate Director of the SEC's Enforcement Division. Ms. Hodgman began working in the Enforcement Division in 2008 as a staff attorney. Very interesting. Ms. Hodgman has led the Enforcement Division Cross-Border Working Group, which provides expertise and assistance of matters with international actors and implications. Before joining the SEC staff, Ms. Hodgman worked as an associate at Milbank, Tweed, Hadley, and McCloy in Washington. Ms. Hodgman received an Ellen B. Ross Award as well as an SEC Chairman's Award in 2010. So the question is, was Strzok's wife, Hodgman, directed by Obama to let these Iranians off the hook for the explicit purpose of helping them manufacture ballistic weapons in Iran? She worked at the SEC since 2008, and she was Strzok's wife. So this is very interesting when we look at this. Now, we know Q has posted in 1496, and we read this yesterday, that we must be loud, we must be heard, fight for the truth. And if you go to the White House, the petition part of the White House, there's a petition now. And the petition reads, unredacted declassification of the Department of Justice Inspector General report for public viewing. And it needs 77,275 signatures by July 13th. It already has 22,725. So we need everyone to go over there and sign this. I have the link on the X22 Report. If you click on the link of the title of this report, scroll all the way to the bottom, you can get to the link. Or if you read the description of the report, I tell you that the link is here. On YouTube, I'll put the link at the bottom of the video so everyone can go over and see this petition. Now, Q posted 1500, 1501, and 1502. And Q is saying, and shows a picture of Google, and it looks like Google guessed this piece of paper. We also have, so what happens in 2.5 hours? Think meeting yesterday. Now remember, all these individuals were using private emails, Gmail. And Gmail keeps drafts of these emails that they wrote. So does this mean they have the drafts of these emails and what's going to happen in 2.5 hours? And Q went on to say in post 1502, what came out of the IG report? James Clapper, former DNI director James Comey, former FBI director, Gmail. They all had them. Riri drops private emails. Convicting Hillary Rodham Clinton equals convicting themselves. Why did the entire Hussein admin use private emails? Eric Schmidt is the key. So we can see right now that Q is telling us that they have these emails, and these individuals are tied in to Hillary's email system. And it looks like things are going to go south very, very quickly. And the push right now is to be loud, to be heard. And I believe this is why the petition is there. And we need everyone, tell everyone you know, to go over and sign it. And let's get it over 100,000. Let's get it to 1 million. So this way, the people are saying, let's push this. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.